So we have recently been to a couple like book conventions, and I think something that I'm seeing is like cosplaying, like where people dress up as characters. And I have something controversial to talk about here.
What is it?
And it's another way that I am biased and I accept it. Okay. I can look myself in the mirror and say, that's fine, Jordan, that you feel that way. Because I've made my peace with it. And it's that like girls who, like if you cosplay and you dress up, especially if you're a girl, totally fine with it. What I have found is like there's always these men cosplayers who are like dressing as Rhysand or like Cassian, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
big characters.
yeah.
They wear like the contacts. And none of them have ever been what I want them to be. So every time I see it, it just gives me the ick.
Okay, I can see that. But there's this one person on social media. I'm going to send you a photo.
Okay.
He cosplays. I don't know if he officially goes to events or if he just cosplays on his own. But oh my God, he is like Cassian to a T in the way I view Cassian, or imagine, I should say.
See, that's important. I want it to
is.
be like, I want you, like if you want to hire somebody, right? I want you to go down to your local gym and find the guy whose FTE is just to sit there and lift weights, okay? If you're going to bring me Cassian, bring me Cassian.
Especially because like certain characters are so built up to be a certain way.
Yeah.
So, and that's okay if like, because I would cosplay as characters if I would go to like a Comic-Con that I look nothing like. So that is okay. But I think the like weirdness maybe is when it's like officially, it's like in an official capacity.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of those book balls, like where I'm thinking of stuff like that. It's like a,
and what's crazy is like a girl could do it. Like you could look nothing like Farrah, and I'll be like, sweet girl, great outfit.
Yeah.
It's the guys who do it. I'm always just like, no, you are not. Sir, how dare you? How dare you walk in? Like, just be a fae. Just be a fae at that point. Yeah, don't come in here with your violet contacts and try to tell me you're Rhysand, because you're not.
I can see that. I'm going to send you this guy. I'm going to find him on social media. I'm going to send it. And actually, the one he specifically looks like more than Cassian in my mind, but he's hot because we don't like this character, but he's hot, is Hunt from Crescent City. Like hot though. Like we don't like him, but you got to admit he sounds hot. Like
I
description
don't think he sounds hot.
He's tall, muscular, and has like long dark hair to his like shoulder. He's hot. He's tall and muscular. Long dark hair.
Okay, when you get into long hair, here's the thing. They do such a good job of explaining Cassian. And he's always wearing it in like a man bun and stuff. So like I know in my head what Cassian looks like. You know what I mean? Like in my head, as a bad description person, I know what he looks like. Any other time you tell me a long-haired man, I cannot picture him. I picture he drives a Subaru and he likes to climb on the weekends. Like I can't picture this guy as the man that you're presenting to me, and that's fine.
It's very different. Different.
That's when I start to go into fan art where I'm like, I don't know. So if you said, Jordan, could you describe Hunt to me? No, I couldn't.
And you couldn't. Okay, interesting. I'm gonna find fan art that I think looks like Hunt in my mind, and then I'm gonna show you this actor, and he does a great job.
Okay. Well, I hope he does. Honestly, like I said, I'm not against it. I just want to see it done well. Yeah. And
in an official capacity.
Yeah. And if not, I think just come as a fae.
Yeah. Or in unofficial capacity. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
As an attendee.
Anyways, that makes me a bad person, but it's how I feel.
No, I mean, I said I don't want to read books written by men, so I mean, right.
Honestly, it just seems like every time we talk, it's like we just put caps on what men can do in our space. We're just like, honestly, I don't want to see that from you either. Because it's never the girls. Like, we never feel that way about the girls. It's always just like, oh, yeah, I don't want to see that from you.
No. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, you want to get into it?
Yes.
All right, I'm Jordan.
I'm Sheridan.
And together we're Sippin on Spice podcast.
And once a week we get together and we talk about all things books, or we discuss a book that we've recently read. This episode is going to be about all different type of bookish topics. Something unique about today's episode is we actually put on our social media asking you to comment 4.5 star or 5-star books that you were recommended that let you down. And we are going to read some of those and discuss them on today's episode, which I'm very excited for.
Yep. And we've been doing some of these polls more frequently because it's just honestly so fun to hear your responses and either feel like validated or intrigued. So if you're ever looking and you want to get involved, you can find us at Sippin on Spice on TikTok and Instagram. We post those there and you can add your comments and potentially be featured.
Yes. Some of them are surprising, especially in today's episode. Some are very surprising.
Yes. There's one I cannot wait to talk to you about. But before we do that, that's not a song. I just kind of went with it.
I was going to let you.
I want to talk about forbidden romance. So,
okay.
Forbidden romance being like, I don't know, age gaps, I guess, your boss, things like that.
Yeah.
What is a forbidden romance that's just an absolute no for you? Like, you see this trope and you're like, it's a no.
I scrolled and I saw a book being recommended that had this trope, and I was like, okay, respect if other people like it because everyone was a consenting adult. I don't like it. And it was when it's like the dad's friend, so there's a huge age gap.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
I hate it. It's icky. I'm sorry. It's like, again, no judgment. People love to read what they love to read. We talk about our preferences. For me, I can't mentally want to read if the male main character was the dad's friend.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's funny because that was what I had at the top of mine too. I don't know, like
maybe we're just scrolling and we're seeing, I
don't know, probably. But I was just like, could never, like, the rest of the book sounded so good, and I got to that trope and I was like, and it's a no for me.
You're like, I can't do that. Yeah, I have another one I just thought of actually because I'm rewatching Inuyasha, which is an amazing anime. And one of the characters is a caregiver to someone who is a lot younger, like a child basically. And then they have a relationship when that child's of age. I'm sorry. Again, they're still of age. They're a consenting adult. But I'm sorry. You were their caregiver when they were a child.
Yeah.
Like it's not the same as them just being a legal adult anymore. Like you cared for them. No.
It starts to want, it's when you get into things like that, you start to say, like, is this...
I think it's...
I
think we could say that's...
Which...
Yeah.
You know what's interesting that I want your opinion on that I've been thinking about a lot lately is in books, fantasy, things that are not real, right? Things that we know are not real.
Mm-hmm.
Is there more forgiveness for things that we wouldn't accept as a society, right? So like a perfect example would be grooming, kind of exactly like what you just said, right? If you met that person, if that was your friend, you'd be like, no, that's not okay. Like this doesn't feel good, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does it make it okay when it's fictional?
That's a good question. Like if it's in a fantasy setting, because we've totally talked about how age gaps are completely different in a fantasy setting. I still think, because I'm sure there's fantasy romances out there where they kind of were maybe like a bodyguard or like a caregiver when they were younger and then they get older and they have a romantic relationship. I'm sure that exists. For me, even if it's fantasy, I don't know that I want to see that specifically. Okay.
Yeah.
Even in fantasy.
Yeah, because I've just been thinking about that lately. Like, especially like if it's something that feels happy spicy to some people, let's say. And it's only in the space of fiction and not in real life. It's like...
Got it. Okay.
I started questioning, like, is there a line then? You know what I mean?
Oh, we're getting very ethical and philosophical.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's because I don't really know the answer, right? Because I always think, like, read what you want. I don't give a shit. Like, just because I don't want to read it does not mean if you told me it was dad's brother, I would never be like, ew, how dare you?
Right.
I'd be like, sweet, you liking it? Like, I would never, I personally wouldn't read it, but that doesn't mean like I would judge you for it. It just, then I start to wonder, like, does that line exist then where you'd go, ooh, maybe
that's not. Oh, I have 2 points. You're so right. I have 2 points. Okay. Now I'm kind of thinking like, I love monster romance. Is this some weird line in my head? But they're all consenting adults.
Right.
They're not, and they don't know with them when they're younger. It's not a dad's friend. It's not a group.
And like if a minotaur approached you, it obviously would not be the same situation.
No, as in the book. No, because then I'd be like, what the fuck? I guess minotaurs are real. Now there's just a minotaur. And probably being abducted by aliens like the Ice Planet Barbarians is probably not.
Oh my God. So you just made me think of a joke before we move on. There's this joke that I always thought was so funny. It was like a comic meme almost, you know?
Oh my God.
And it was like two muffins are in a microwave. and one muffin looks at, or in the oven, there's 2 muffins in an oven. And the one muffin looks at the other muffin and goes, hey, it's getting kind of hot in here. And the other muffin goes, holy shit, talking muffin.
It's hilarious.
That's why I thought you'd be like, holy shit, talking minotaur.
A minotaur is now here. Wow, the books are coming to life. That is hilarious. So, but then it also really brings up ethically the conversation of Rhapsodic, that book.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
That's fantasy, but yeah.
Because something we talk about, I think, sometimes is wanting to see representation in content you read, and how what we consume affects how we act and think and all sorts of things, true. Right? So I guess sometimes I like find myself questioning, like, is there ever a line? Like, how do you decide it's a line and not just a trigger warning?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. Yeah, because that's a very ethical, philosophical question. I don't know that we have the answer, because I know we have things we don't want to read.
Right. But again, I wouldn't judge you. I'd be like, cool.
Exactly.
Nice.
Exactly. I guess that's a very personal question, because it is fiction. Like, it is not real life. So that's a good question. We got deep today. We got philosophical.
Like I said, I've been thinking about it where I'm like, is there ever a line where you'd be like, ooh,
like, yeah,
that, even though it's fiction, it doesn't count. Like, you don't get to trigger warning that. I think of actually, that big controversial book that came out. It was actually like pretty much shamed by the entire community. I never read it. Was that, oh shoot, I wish I remember the name of it, but it was like essentially a book where he knew her when she was like 3 and had liked her since she was like 3. And it was like, even the cover art was like kids art kind of thing, like with blocks and stuff. And that was like a very, very clear no, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's obviously situations like that. It's just, I sometimes wonder what makes it a trigger warning versus
like outright, like, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very philosophical question. I will tell you, watching Inuyasha, which basically has that exact thing, like that character is that age, basically 3 or 4 or whatever. And then obviously years goes by, decades later at the end of the series, because animes are super long, when she is older, we are alluded to believe that they're an item. I skip over those parts. I don't want to watch that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I do think anime sometimes rolls the dice on a few things.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, yes.
Anyways, just thought.
Very philosophical.
Okay, so I recently, let's break it back up. Let's beat the beat up.
Okay.
Turn
this frown upside down.
It's like saying, like, don't be sad, be glad,
Oh yeah.
Like, you just hit me with like a momism. I don't know.
You need to ship up or out.
Shape up. It's shape up or shit out. If you're gonna phrase us, phrase us.
Shit out. Okay.
Okay. I was reading this book, and it was like, it's in a series I've recommended to you, actually, when you get to it. And there is a scene where, like, it's clear, like, it's kind of like a second chance romance, and these 2 people end up on dates at the table next to each other, and there's clearly like old tension there. Aww. Well, the FMC goes to the bathroom, and the date comes in and is like, right. So your immediate face right now was like shock, right? And you're stressed. Yeah. What do you think is going to happen?
So the date goes up and the FMC is in the bathroom. I don't know. I feel like she's going to try to shoot her shot, or she's going to say something, right?
Like what though? Like, what's your immediate reaction?
So she's the ex, right? They had
No, they're on a date right now. So you have the people on the date. They're at the table next to each other. The FMC and the MMC are on different dates.
Okay. And the
FMC gets up to go to the bathroom, and the date of the MMC gets up and goes to the bathroom.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I think she's going to say, my mind would go to, but again, this is like drama. I'm thinking of that Mariah Carey music video. I'm thinking she's going to like confront her in the bathroom, like stop making eyes or stop having tension with my date. Yeah.
Right. That is the traditional, like, I feel like that's pretty normal as like a trope. Right. I don't think you're being any which way, right? That is normal in a trope. This chick is like, hey, he's in love with you. There's a hot guy at the bar. I'm going to leave with him. I think that you guys should finally work this out. Like that. He's scaring off your date right now. And she's like, so cool. The FMC is obviously still in that phase of like, no, like, we're totally not, like, I'm on a different date, blah, blah, blah. And I was so excited about that, like, difference of like a scene where I was like, hell yes. Like because I feel like that's really how people would act. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you're
Yeah.
on like a second, third date, you wouldn't be like, wow, I'm attached to this guy. You'd be like, yeah, this is you
You
two.
obviously like this other
Yeah,
person
I'm going to
more.
see myself out. I'm not going to fight for you, you weird stranger.
Right.
So I just loved seeing that scene. And I was like, I love when like they have a ex or something and they're really cool. Or like we've read a book like this where like single parents and they're just friends. Like they never even really had a relationship and you're not like annoyed by them being in the same scenes together and stuff.
That is unique. There's one book I can think of that was done that well. That was unique. For me, not unique that it doesn't happen in books because it does. Unique that I liked it. There's one book where I liked it.
And I just love seeing that different kind of representation because your immediate cringe was my immediate thought. And then when the conversation went on, I was like, hell yeah. Like that's what I want to see. Like I love seeing like that pro women.
Yes. Yeah.
Like that's fine. He's not my cup of tea. No big deal.
I love that. I think that's super positive. I think that is very important and we love to see it. We love to see women supporting women. So yes, agreed. Now, if she's the ex, she better never come around again. I cannot read that. If they actually dated.
Yeah, well, it depends. It always depends how it's done.
True.
Like, what if they both have, like, moved on? You know what I mean? It's circumstantial.
No.
Your face. No.
But I do love that she supported her.
So, kind of like what we were talking about before. Are there trigger warnings that you can, like, if you see a specific trigger warning, it's a no for you? Because you and I have been talking about this a lot lately, where you were reading the next in a series, and I said I was worried about reading that next book because I have read books with similar kind of tee-ups, and it got dark to a point that, like, again, the book's not bad. It's in its writing. It's just for me, I know I can't read through it because it's too dark for me to digest. Do you have trigger warnings like that are like your line?
I think so. And I think they're probably pretty similar. I think we agree on this pretty much. If the trigger warning has anything to do with like, I'm personally going to choose to not read that book, which I've actually been surprised recently multiple times with a scene coming that I didn't see in the trigger warnings of that occurrence. So I have been, I don't want to say bamboozled by it, but I was reading and that happened. That's a trigger warning for me that's pretty hard to get past, but that's probably the biggest one. Pretty much all other ones are okay.
That's how I feel too. But what's interesting is if it's like a trigger warning where it's from the past, like it's not on page.
Oh, yeah.
I'm okay with it. Like if it's like, hey, I had this, like a perfect example is The Deal, right? There's a past there. We know of this past. You learn of it, but you're not living it. It's when it happens on page and some of those darker like scenes, anything to do with like essay and that I'm out. And it sucks because I feel like in certain fantasies that's starting to become more common. And it's like, it's hard because I get it, right? When you're creating very high tension scenarios and things and people get like kidnapped and stuff, realistically,
right,
that's probably what's going to happen, right?
Like there's a high risk. Yes.
So I understand why authors do it and creating that tension and why it happens, and I understand that it feels more tangible, I guess. But what I find is like now I'm seeing it more frequently, and it's like I can't read so many of these like really well known or like championed books that I want to read because I'm like I
just don't want to read that.
I can't move past that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it also has a lot to do with like maybe if I just think especially with like the state of the world right now and some things being like kind of heavy, I think like reading certain topics or trigger warnings just feels like extra heavy. I do think we're mood readers. So I think moods definitely affect that in general, but I would agree with you. I don't really for me that's not something that I want to read happen on page. If it is in the past and you don't read it on the page, I could see that, that's less triggering, I suppose.
It's interesting that you say that too, because you've been on a fantasy kick for escapism and I've been on a contemporary kick for escapism.
Yes.
And I genuinely think it's because the stressors in fantasy are much higher risk than contemporary stressors, realistically, right? Contemporary stressors are like, real like basic things, right? And so for me, I've had a much harder time getting into fantasy lately because I cannot
Interesting.
take on heavier stressors. I'm like,
Oh, I totally get it.
give me the like the easiest, like I can digest, because right now, and you're right, and I wonder if there's going to be a point where like I feel less overwhelmed by the world around me and like my circumstances, where I'll be like, oh, okay, I'm ready to like dive back into that, because that has been like a barrier for me lately.
Yeah, no, I think it's so interesting, like our state of mind, you know, with what's going on externally and internally. Our state of minds, I do think, affects what we want to read. For me, I've been finding escapism in fantasy because I think what I run into with contemporary is this. Well, we don't need to get into all this because I will be on a soapbox for forever talking about the world around us. But I need to leave the world around us, but in fantasy that doesn't feel too dark. But okay, so speaking of how things kind of affect what we want to read, we talked about this briefly a little bit at a book event that we just recently went to, and I totally think as women, where we're at in our cycle affects what we want to read. Like it affects our moods, our feelings. Oh my God, like when you're in your luteal phase, like pre-period, those letter tropes are probably going to hit you like 10,000 times fold because it affects our feelings, our moods, what we want to read, what we connect with, the vibe. Okay. I think like in a cycle where you're at really depends. I think it could, as women, affect what you want to read, what you're in the mood for.
So do you have like a list or a phase recommendation you would go through?
This is so crazy. Okay, we're just going to have some real talk.
So you're going to have to actually explain these phases to me, because I see like TikToks where people are like, I'm in the luteal phase. That means nothing to me.
Okay.
I know it's in what it's in reference to, but if you were like, Jordan, point on a calendar, okay, if you could chart this, I have nothing. So
I totally get it. I am so excited because I had an old coworker explain these phases to me years ago. And she was like, I plan my life based on my cycle phases. And she's like, I'm so happy because she makes plans depending on where she's at in her cycle. So when you're in your follicular phase at the beginning of your cycle, pre-ovulation, and that's like your period has just started before you ovulate, right? That's your follicular phase.
So I'm on my period.
Pretty much like when your period ends. Like cycle day 1 on your like period tracker is the first day of your cycle, and technically, yes, you are in your follicular phase. But when we're talking about this, we're really talking about when you're done with your period.
Okay.
And then you hit ovulation, which is a range of a couple days right there in the middle, typically. Everyone has a different cycle, so it's not always right in the middle. And then post-ovulation is before you start your period. It's called your luteal phase. This is when most women, not all women, get a little bit more emotional. They, cravings, PMS, like you hear those terms, that's in your luteal phase. Pre-period. So that's a time of like, I feel like I want like a lot of comfort. That's when I love like cozy reads or cozy mysteries, like that chill, relaxing time. And my old coworker said she wouldn't make plans during that week because she was working through like feelings of PMS and different things like that. So she's just like, I know not to make plans during that week. Because I don't know if you've ever experienced that. Like when your period starts, you actually feel like way better. At least for me, not all women, but at least for me, I feel better when my period finally starts. Like that week before, I'm a menace.
Right now, I could not tell you. It's been like almost like, what is it, 10 months or whatever? Because I'm at the end, I'm at the end of this game. Honestly, by the time you're hearing this, I've probably birthed.
Gonna have a baby. Yeah.
I probably have a baby.
Yes. So, but for you, I'm going to say something that sounds wild and don't hate me, please. But so when you're in your luteal phase of a cycle, your hormone that's dominant is progesterone. You're rising in progesterone. When you're pregnant, you need to have progesterone. Like it's the progestation hormone. When you're pregnant, you need to have so much progesterone to sustain the pregnancy. So you're you're in your luteal phase
always
for 9 months. Yeah.
Oh, no wonder I don't want to do anything. This makes a lot of sense though, because what has been my biggest kick right now?
Cozy small town romances.
I am eating up small town romances. Okay, I could regurgitate small town romances right now. Right. It's like I see one and I'm like, ooh, okay.
Yes. And I want to be very clear because like every cycle is different. Everyone's cycle is unique. This is just what I know from my cycle, basically. I guess we're gonna get real TMI here, but yes, and I know
cycle of Sheridan.
So that's when I like sweet contemporary romance. When I'm ovulating is a time where typically those hormones triggering ovulation make you want to have spicy time. So that's when I love the monster romances.
Oh yeah, because but they're like wholesome too. It's like
they're wholesome, spicy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, is it any spice or is it specifically monster spice?
This is such a good question. This is a good, because I don't know if you've been feeling the same way. Spice for me, the more we're on our reading journey, it has become more enjoyable when it is almost fantastical. Like it's some Minotaur or it's some, I don't know why, but like I find myself just skimming more and more of contemporary spice.
I do too.
Yeah.
I totally do it. And it's like, and it does not discount the book for me. I'm not
no,
like, oh,
not at all. No.
Unless it's like B2B in a way that's like too much. But I am skimming it a lot. I just find I want to know about everything else. And so it's actually been making me wonder if I'm ready for like a YA situation.
Like fantasy.
Yeah, fantasy.
I completely agree. Okay, so I have something to discuss with you.
Other than your cycle.
Okay. Other than my cycle. We talked a lot about this. We talked in a previous episode. I totally mixed up some POVs, like forgetting things. Mm-hmm. We both said if it's been a really long time since we've read a book, we forget things like if it's been more than 3 months, right? So it has been more than 3 months since we finished The Veiled Kingdom and I just started Hunted Heir. Yeah. I was obsessed with Hunted Heir because I forgot how annoyed I was with the male main character from The Veiled Kingdom. I forgave him out of like forgetness. Like I forgave him because I forgot. Like I didn't remember certain things that happened pre the ending. And then when I was reading it, I was like, oh my God, I love him now. But then they called back to certain things that happened in book 1. And I was like, oh, I have forgotten. And via that forgetfulness, I have forgiven you. And now I loved book 2 and book 3. I read them super quickly, recommend them. They were great.
Yeah, I'm excited to finish that series. It's definitely one that I really liked. I did think the ending was controversial, what you're forgiving him for. So I was hesitant. But when I opened book 2 and probably like the first couple chapters, the character mindset made me be like, oh, okay, we're not going to dabble with the things I didn't like about how it ended, so to speak, without getting spoily, right? So I knew I would appreciate this character. I was honestly more worried about how dark it would get because I know it was borderline dark fantasy. So I was just waiting for book 3 for you to read book 3 to tell me that it was safe.
I'm excited for you to read it. I'm excited to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm excited. But I do think that breaks in between books can be interesting because it's like a matter of if I remember what happened. But I find it depends, right? Fantasy, I can remember. Like fantasy, I have a much longer memory for it. Like I haven't read Veiled Kingdom in a long time, but I remember. Or at least when I pick up the next book, I remember most of it right away. What's funny is if you gave me an interconnected standalone and gave me 6 months between, the next release, there's a good chance I'm going to forget who these people were, what they were up to. I need to reskim it. I need to remember, like, which character were you?
I completely agree. I agree on standalones, but I need the refresh for fantasy. Like it in one part of the mind and out the other if it's been a while. Unless it like super, 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 like I could probably recite the majority of ACOTAR and what happens. Like that I've reread, that I could probably tell you with any time in between. But other ones, like I am going to need to reread Quicksilver before Brimstone comes out.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
I'll remember the ending, like what we landed on. But yeah, if I want to get like back into the characters, I'm going to need a refresher. But I'll still remember it more than I would a contemporary.
I could see that for sure.
I will say, like, for contemporary, there have been books I read like maybe 4 months before, because I read a lot, right? There have been books that I've read like 4 months before that I've like re-downloaded on Kindle and been like, it'll be like 98% complete. Like I read you, and I'm like, what was this?
You're like, yes. Well, I do that too.
Yeah, so I'll like go back through it and I'll be like, what the
Right, exactly. But you tell me that all the time. I'm like, I didn't read that. And you're like, no, you did.
And like, you definitely did.
And then it's in my Kindle.
Okay. So do you want to get into our newest poll? We asked you books that were like 4.5 stars. Things that you were like, yes, I'm going to read you because everybody recommends you. This is one of the big ones for me because what's been happening to me specifically on Kindle is I will go and see a book and they'll have like 4.7 stars and thousands of reviews and I will DNF it. And I'm like, is it me? Like, am I the drama?
Is it me? Am I the drama?
So I had to know, like, who else is this happening to? And I don't want to hear like ACOTAR. I don't want to hear like the obvious ones that everybody comes for. Because you hear arguments for that. And honestly, a lot of times, like, my sister's a big example of like, she doesn't really love ACOTAR and she gives you reasons. And I get it. Like, I understand and I see her point. It didn't do that for me and that's fine.
Right.
But I wanted like books that you went into with hope and came out the other end betrayed. And some of these answers were wild, dude. Some things that like caught me off guard.
Okay. You go first and then I've got mine.
Okay. The first one is actually The Great Gatsby. And this one threw me for a loop because I think for the most part, most of us had to read The Great Gatsby, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of renowned. So I wanted to start with this one because I thought I know nothing about it other than I had to read it.
Okay. Do you remember it?
Vaguely. Like I give you rough sketch. So Evie, I hope I'm saying this right, said that the good parts weren't even written by the author. And I was like, what? Like,
what?
Right. So she said his wife, Zelda Fitzgerald, that he stole from her diary to write these. I didn't know this. And she said he also recorded her on laughing gas for Daisy's dialogue and repressed her creativity until she had a nervous breakdown and had to be sent to a mental hospital where she died in a fire.
Whoa, what? That takes a turn. I did not know he gave her laughing gas and then she died in a fire at a mental hospital.
So he basically thrifted from her, manipulated her,
ruined her life.
Just to like write a book. And we all still read this book and act like it's some great
Men, the audacity.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying when I say sometimes let's just hold our own on our romantic novel front, okay? That's fine. It's okay for us to hold our ground here.
Exactly. Wow, I am shocked.
I was so shocked. I was like, holy shit, I did not know any of this. I just assumed it was like some boring literature man I had to read.
Yeah. Exactly. I was gonna say I don't remember like being I love this book, but it is a romance to a certain degree, obviously. So wow. Okay, again, the audacity of men. Okay, one that shocked
yet again
me.
the audacity of men.
The audacity of men.
That's it. We should just get a shirt that says yet again the audacity of men.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So, one that came up quite a few times on Instagram actually that did shock me, and they had some really valid points, but quite a few people put Iron Flame or Onyx Storm. Like quite a few people actually had several submissions for that. And I was shocked because I feel like we're such big fans, and maybe some people that we are book friends with, like in real life, are big fans. So for that one's more a little bit more like, but the points that they make are actually very valid. Like Iron Flame does have a lot of miscommunication.
Yeah. That's when I saw it and I was like, yeah, I could totally see that. Because I even think that when you and I reviewed it as its own book, we talked about the level of miscommunication being kind of frustrating. But it's interesting because when I went and reread it as a piece of the work then, like after Onyx Storm came out, I understood what she was getting at. But it's interesting because like I said, to the same point, like people will give me like ACOTAR like inconsistencies and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I totally get your point. Like you are right. Didn't change how I felt, but you are right. And I can I can see why you didn't like it for sure.
And Onyx Storm too, like there were some comments that said, a couple people commented that Onyx Storm had a lot of filler and setup for the next books, which I think Onyx Storm was a heavy theory. Not filler in my opinion, because again, they're right. They're not wrong. It's canon. It's just, yes, it was used to set up the next book. Yes, that is not an inaccurate statement. So it just depends on what you like and what you don't like.
And I think it's harder when, like, for example, at least from my perspective, when I read ACOTAR, not that it's complete, right? We know that there's a book 6, but you can read what is out now and feel completed, right? Like you could feasibly feel like, okay, I'm cool. There's no like crazy ending where I'm like waiting for something to happen, right? So you could look at it as a complete piece of work in a way. Being able to read it that way, I don't pick apart the series in the same way I would have if I had read it one by one. Like had I read book 1 and not had book 2 immediately, I don't know that I would have moved on to book 2 because
I agree.
Book 1 was, to me, harder to make it through. A lot more world building, a lot more of those inconsistencies, in my opinion. And so I was lucky enough to be able to just hop into book 2, right? And if I hadn't,
Yeah.
how would I have felt? I don't know. And
Yeah, that's a really valid
we're
point.
faced with the challenge where we're live reading something that's setting up
Exactly.
something else.
Exactly. I had to wait in between book 2 and book 3. But book 2 was already out for ACOTAR when I read book 1. And my coworker was like, no, you need to read book 2. Like, book 2 is where, like, you, and so that's why I was like, okay, I will read book 2.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
But you would have stopped.
Yes.
Had book 1 only been out, you'd have been like, yeah, it was fine.
Right. So it is different. And maybe in the future, if someone has the opportunity to read all the books back to back, no, wait, would they feel differently? Would they feel the same?
Yeah.
Etc. Totally.
Because like I said, Iron Flame as its own, I saw all the miscommunications and felt frustrated with things. But then when I read Onyx Storm and then went back, I was like, oh, I see what you were doing there and why you did this and how you presented it. Okay, one that I saw quite a bit that actually was a vindication for me was One Dark Window.
Yes, we're going to get spicy responses on this, but we did not like this book. Either book, the duology.
We didn't hate it, right? Like it wasn't like a 2-star. It just wasn't this renowned 5-6 star book that everybody talked about. And so for me, it was like there was too many loose ends all the time. When I read fantasy, especially, the first thing I think is the most obvious thing is you always kind of finish up the people you need to finish up. Otherwise, if you don't, they're going to be right back. And it always happens. And so when things like that happen and some of the more obvious things happen, I'm like, this could have been an email.
Right. And I think, well, I mean, you know my thoughts on the ending. That one I could feel vindication on. That one I felt like, I was like, okay. Because I did feel like we were on an island of dislike for that duology.
It's very rare that anybody else says they didn't like it. Like there's very few people who are like, wow, it wasn't my cup of tea. Where I'm like, okay, so like when I saw all these come in, I was like, yes, welcome in, friends. I agree.
Yes. One that I saw quite a bit that shocked me, and it actually made me be like, will we ever get to this book, is When the Moon Hatched.
Oh.
Like, you know what I mean? We saw that a few times.
And it's hard because that's a beast of a book. So it's like one of those books that's been on our TBR for a long time because it's like a 600-700 pager. So you're like, whew.
You're going to commit.
If I'm not going to like that, I'm going to be mad. Like people are going to hear about how mad I am that I didn't like that.
Because you're like, I had to read so much of this.
Yeah.
That was like, at that I was kind of like, ooh, do I add that? Do I not add that to the TBR? Yeah. Am I ever going to get to it? I don't know, you know?
In that same note, you know what else shocked me was Red Queen was on the list. And we've only heard great things. So I was shocked because they pretty much said that they didn't like the main character. And we hear a lot that Powerless and Red Queen are similar and that there are some perhaps derivatives in that aspect.
Yes.
We don't know. We haven't read it. It's just typically a topic that comes up. So I'm like, well, I didn't like so I don't want to buckle up on another round of that.
I don't want to break some people's heart, but I purchased Red Queen way back, a physical copy. I started it and I abandoned 10 years ago.
Was it the FMC? Do you remember?
I don't remember what I didn't like because it's been so long, but I even have my bookmark still on the page because it was a physical book. I still have it there. I just
How far did you
abandoned it. Like maybe, I think I'll find it. I'll get it off my shelf, but I think like page 75 something, like 76.
Ooh.
Yeah, so very early, but I was like, and again, that was so long ago. I think perspectives change, but I have heard it's fantastic. So I feel like I need to give it another chance.
Yeah. And it's hard because it's like you don't know why you didn't like it, and it was so long ago
I can't
that
remember.
Like imagine if like that thing is now something you like.
Exactly.
It's like, you know what, I kind of want to challenge myself to read again because everybody likes it but me.
Huh.
The Bridge Kingdom.
Oh yeah.
I just really didn't like it.
Yeah. Interesting.
And
okay.
everybody talks about loving that book. And I'm like, what did I miss? Like, I wanted to like it. And I just wonder. And I read the whole thing. Like, I dedicated. I did not give up. I read I think it's 3 books.
Yeah.
And so
you read all 3 books?
I read them all.
So you did dedicate. You did.
Yeah. I didn't DNF at the time. I saw it out.
Yeah.
I was like, I was like, somebody commented and used the phrase hate finish. And I was like, yeah, I absolutely hate finished things.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Yeah, I would be curious to see what you think.
Interesting because it's like, I feel like there's a type of like where like people either really like Throne of Glass, Quicksilver, Fourth Wing, that setup. And then there are other people who really like Red Queen, The Bridge Kingdom,
Yes.
Daughter of No
Yes.
Worlds. You tend to see those go hand in hand. And it's like, we read Daughters of No Worlds and liked book one, but I didn't feel motivated to keep going. Not dislike,
Agreed.
but didn't feel motivated to keep going. And it's like people's God tier. And I think, God, I want to feel that way about it, especially because so many people compare it to Throne of Glass, where I'm like, oh.
I want to feel that way about it too. That is definitely a series I want to feel that way. I actually thought something the author did an amazing job in that book. They wrapped up book one so well. So this is kind of like the Onyx Storm conversation. Book one for me felt wrapped up so well. The story could have just ended. Like I didn't feel the need to read book 2 or 3 because I actually felt like everything was tied up in book 1 from memory. Could my memory be all over the place?
Yeah, I don't remember how it ended.
Yes.
But I do remember not feeling cliffhangery.
Exactly.
And I think that's a good point because, like, for example, ACOTAR book 2 to 3, huge cliffhanger. And so you're like, it takes away ACOTAR book 1 did feel wrapped up. You could have walked away from that and been like, okay, that was an okay book. I'm done. They did technically bow that up. Yeah. So I wonder if that plays a part on it too, of like feeling a level of completion feeling.
I agree. I think so, because then if you think of like Fourth Wing, every book ends on something where you need to read the next book because it's a shock. So I feel like it is a stress. Exactly. Yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
I'm trying to see if there's anything else.
Cruel Prince.
Oh, that the Cruel Prince is on here. Again, that's what I'm saying. People either love it or hate it, so I don't know. But typically, like when I hear people don't like it because it wasn't spicy and they didn't realize it was YA, or weren't set up to believe that it would be political intrigue, I understand that. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But I've never heard somebody say it for not those reasons.
Yeah, that makes sense. It definitely has a lot of political intrigue. It actually gives me, in a different way, Zodiac Academy vibes, because I would call it a bully romance. The bullying in book 1 is bullying. I absolutely am obsessed with the FMC. So the way she handles that is just like you love her. Like she's
I love
great.
That. That's
so I think
like,
you really like it.
I know. I need to do it. It's like up there. I think what I need to do is start with like a YA fantasy to test the waters back in, because typically it's not as dark. And so I don't have to be as stressed off the bat.
Yes. I would say it's bullying, but there's no dark to be worried of.
Okay. I feel like that's where I need to go. And then maybe I'll be like, because it's like once you feed the beast, you're like, more. And then you're in.
Yes.
But it's like, I need something to get my foot back in the door where I'm like, okay, I want more of this, you know?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I could see that. Maybe it'll be Cruel Prince for you.
Yeah. Because I just started that Hannah Boehm Young. I started Next of Kin.
Yes.
And so far it is so good. So I'm interested to see how it goes and what the vibe is like, because this is my first time reading this author. But it's like the setup is like heavy.
Okay.
Cool. I think that's everything, right? We want to wrap it up. You heard it here first through the grapevine. If you like what you heard, you can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Sippin on Spice, and definitely keep an eye out for those posts where we'll poll you and ask you some of your random bookish things so we can talk about it.
Yes, and we also have a YouTube channel, so please go check us out. We release podcast episodes on there as well as just other like bookish type content. So please check us out on YouTube and like and subscribe.
Yep. Hope to see you next week. Cheers.
Cheers.